All right, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to this week's weekly watch list video. We're going to run through a few of the names I'm watching early into next week. This is brought to you by the Trade Lab, which is my newsletter where I provide market analysis as well as education. My goal is to teach people how to fish, not just give them stock ideas. I don't think that really helps anybody in the long run. So if you're interested in the Trade Lab, I highly recommend checking it out. You can visit tradeline.com/trade-lab. That link will be in the description. And if you want a free look at what a typical report looks like, that link will also be in the description. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right into a few of the names I'm watching into next week. And just to kind of set the stage, because context is so important. Last week, if we bring up the QQQ, we had a negative expectation breaker to end the week. We've got a potential daily head and shoulders top here. I do not know what's going to happen. Nobody does, but it does give me a little bit of pause that we were attempting to break out of this range, and instead we got that negative expectation breaker and broke lower. So we'll see what happens in the short term. If we get a positive expectation breaker, tomorrow on Tuesday, where we hold and test that pivot again, that would be constructive. The uptrend is still intact. We're above these rising moving averages. We're testing that 21 EMA. So there's the potential for a short-term downtrend. It hasn't happened yet, but we'll just have to kind of wait and see how the cards fall. So this does give me a little bit of short-term pause. I'm not necessarily want to be incredibly aggressive, not just because of the Qs, but because of the merchandise and how everything is setting up. But it's really important to remember that trends can last a lot longer than we think, and maybe this will just be a short-term correction if we do fall through to the downside, and we might get a quick recovery like this. So we'll just have to play the cards again, how they're dealt, and see what happens. So that is the QQQ. Now diving into individual names. First things first, we've got HUT actually for a potential short trade. If Bitcoin continues and crypto just continues to weaken, we've got a kind of short-term range here. I'm watching for break below here, and watching for basically a failed breakout, retesting this area right here. Really, I'm just trying to improve on my short selling. This is an area that I really want to improve on. So this is an idea that I'm starting to incorporate a little bit of these range breakdowns in addition to my typical range breakouts. So that is HUT. Next up, we've got P-Sky. This is much more of a very fast mover. You can see on this day, we moved 36%. This is a recent IPO and is setting up a tight range on the 10 EMA. It's kind of stopped this downside momentum here. Tight 2 days here with tight closes. I'm watching for a break above this level, this high here on ideally increased relative volume. And looking for more of a swing trade idea with this one. Next up, we've got TEM. We bring that chart up. This showed relative strength here on this last Friday with a nice positive outside day as the overall market was pulling in. Overall, this is a recent IPO. It's in a promising space. You've got AI paired with biotechnology, and is setting up a larger basing pattern within this larger basing pattern. So I'm watching for continuation higher from this level and eventual breakout into new all-time highs. I think this one is definitely one to have on your radar, and we'll just have to see how this goes. It was actionable here on Friday. I had it on my watch list here with this inside day, and basically watching again for further continuation, breaking through these highs and around this level right here. Moving on, we've got LMND. This was also on my watch list the past few days here. It did have a squat here on Friday and a downside reversal the day before, but still overall is a recent power move higher and now pulling back into the 21 EMA. This is one of my bread and butter setups here, and just basically watching for a break higher through the top of this range here. And we'll have to see what happens. But bigger pattern here, you can see this consolidation is basically just pulling back to this prior key level. So we'll see if we can respect that level as well as the 21 EMA and see a move higher through that range. Mercy, moving on, we've got this one, another recent power move up, consolidated, pull back to 10 EMA, bounce higher, and now testing this key level again. Downside reversal here on Friday, so ideally it sets up an upside reversal on the 10 EMA or just has a positive expectation breaker and breaks through this range. But yeah, just basically watching for a push through this key level here. Love the move up on volume and now consolidating against a potential pivot point. DLO, pretty similar, recent earnings gap. And if we look back, this has been a choppy one. I remember Everybody wanted to trade this stock. I think back in this area here, it was a promising IPO, but recently it's just done a lot of nothing. It's been really stage one, but you've potentially got an earnings gap here. This earnings gap down didn't resolve further to the downside, and now we've got a move higher on the highest volume in over a year here. So potential change in character, and I'm watching basically for push higher through this range here. You had a squat here on Thursday, upside reversal off the 10 EMA, and now watching for follow through to the upside here on Friday. And with all these long setups, obviously the market is so important with any long setup. If the market continues down, these range breakouts are likely going to fail. That's one reason why I'm not really looking to be aggressive early next week, and just being aware of that fact will keep me on the right side of not trying to put on too much too soon and really wait for the market to set up in addition to the individual names themselves. RKLB acted well the past 2 days, subtly broke out of this area here on Friday, and basically watching for continuation higher. This is a fast mover. I love how it's above this longer term basing pattern, which it in and of itself is above this longer term, the IPO high that it's set. So acting really nicely, and got nice revenue growth here to the downside. If you look down here as well, and basically watching again for fall through to the upside early next week. This one, CAI, this is a new one for me, a recent IPO. I love these tight closes here as it forms a tight range. Upside reversal here on Friday, watching for continuation to the upside. And I didn't mention this for most names, but for the majority of range breakouts, I'm going to be setting my stop at the low of the day that it breaks out. So I wouldn't be setting my stop really at this low. I'd be setting my stop, if it opens here and pushes higher, I'd set my stop at the low of the day, or opens a little bit higher, pushes through, I'd set my stop at the low of the day. If it gaps above it, I'll often look for an opening range breakout where maybe it pulls back into the pivot and then U-turns, and then try to basically enter on that turn. And again, setting my stop at that low of the day. But I definitely, I typically try to wait if we get a gap up. I much prefer gap downs that resolves to the upside than, a name that's setting up, looks great, gaps up higher, because there's often a pull in before, if it does eventually move higher from that gap up. So just a quick note on that. But yeah, typically my stops are at the low of the range breakout day. Moving on, we've got Cenex. This is a non-tech related one, so good to have a little bit of variety. There's aluminum. You had a tight day. It did form a tight day after a downside reversal, so potentially, it's set up to the downside as well as the upside, but this is a really clean level for me, this range high, so watching for a push to the upside here. And we'll see if this can push higher. Really strong earnings growth. This is obviously a cyclical name, but there's a name that can make a nice move in a short amount of time. So that's why it's on my radar. Go, I've been tracking this one for quite some time. You've had a few squats in there. Big upside reversal on Thursday, tight day, but with a poor close here on this Friday. But watching for a range breakout through these highs, and then eventually a range breakout to the upside. And this is a potential kind of turnaround here with this earnings gap after the long decline. So we'll see if it can actually change character and start pushing to the upside. Moving on, we've got MP. This has been very strong here, and it's held up very well, actually. On Friday, we did pull in, but setting up a new range here after it broke out of this one, last week or the week before that, and is holding that 21 EMA when most names are putting in a little bit more weaker showings than that. So watching for a resolution to the upside and a reconfirmation to the upside. Moving on, we've got Snow. This is a recent earnings gap here, a very strong surprise as well, profitable when the expectation was it would lose actually $1, so that's very strong as well. And basically watching for a range breakout to the upside through that HVC, or ideally it pulls in a little bit more, and then watching for a U-turn or shorter term range to form in this area. But definitely a name to have on your radar. AI related because it has to do with data, and we'll see how this one acts as well. PTSG is another one that looks pretty similar to this. I'm also watching that. MDB, another recent gap up in that area. They're more on the hardware side, I believe. So Snow is kind of my focus when it comes to that. Moving on, we've got Reddit. This is forming basically a handle within this longer term cup, and basically watching for resolution to the upside. of the kind of key leaders, this is holding up the best. Love this tight inside day after this positive expectation breaker, and basically watching for a range breakout through these highs. It already slightly broke out of this range here on Thursday and had a consolidation day on Friday. So ideally reconfirms, breaks through these highs, and continues stronger through this level as well with a strong close all in one bar, ideally on higher relative volume. Moving on, we've got Palantir. This, of course, was the leader for quite some time, but recently maybe a little bit of a change in tune. You've got this strong bar to the downside, which to me suggests that we kind of need at the very least a basing period. And this range here, while it is constructive that didn't fall through to the downside, could potentially resolve to the downside further and just be more of a downtrend, more of a basing pattern. But we'll see if we can push up higher and then start to form some higher highs and higher lows, at least in the short term, and start to build out this base. But this does look a little bit early to me. This looks more like the left-hand side of a base than the right-hand side of the base. This would be kind of the natural period I'd be looking for the start of the right-hand side to form of a base. But we'll have to see what happens. And I always like seeing tightness, and it also coincides with the 50 SMA. So watching for a range breakout to the upside, but not really expecting too much of this name, at least in the short term. But we'll have to see what happens actually in real time. Next up, we've got Hood, which has been basing really since this period in the middle of July. We tried to break out a few times here, big downside reversal, and we're below the 21 EMA, but we've got two kind of tightish days against the 50 SMA, so potential for the start of a move up higher. So watching for push higher through these highs, reclaim, pop through that 21 EMA, and ideally a handle to form here, and then resolution to the upside and actually breaking out of this consolidation. This is a name definitely to have on your radar, and we'll see if it needs a little bit more time or if it's ready to start moving up that right hand side and tightening up a little bit more. Here's that name, PSTG, that I just mentioned. I actually have the chart, I forgot, but nice tight day after this move higher, very strong move higher. And if you look at this, it doesn't look like much, the earnings growth, but it was a surprise of 378%. That's going to move the needle. Revenue didn't surprise too much, but we'll have to see how these estimates update as well in the coming days and weeks. But really love that earnings surprise. And if we bring up MDB as well, let's bring up that chart. This is in the same space and nice action after earnings. And also had a nice earnings surprise. So this theme, I'm not quite sure how related they are. Maybe you know more. Let me know in the comments. But I'm noticing those gap ups in those areas. So definitely some names to have on your radars. But that's pretty much the names I wanted to go through today. Here is the list. Again, I put something out like this, a report just like this, every single day to TradeLab members. So if you're curious about that, again, visit traderlion.com/TradeLab, and the link to that is in the description. And also, if you have any other tickers that you'd like me to go over, again, let me know in the comment section. I'll give you my quick thoughts on them. And let me know your thoughts on the market, names you're watching currently. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Best of luck next week. And I'll see you guys here next weekend for the next weekly watch list video. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in future videos. Take care.